The one thing I can say about leaving the narcissistic family cult is there has to be someone who breaks the generational curse of this way of manipulating and dominating and traumatizing people. There has to be somebody who leaves. There has to be somebody who says, I'm not going to allow myself to live this way. I'm not going to have my children learn these behaviors. And they change those traditions. They change how they live their lives. I wanted to talk about the narcissist family system. Narcissistic traits run in families based upon trauma patterns and conditioning patterns that the family has in their tradition. In other words, what a family groups together around, the values they share, the behaviors that become acceptable, the secrets that they keep, those things become inherited tradition in a family. The traditions of that family are expected to be kept if you want to stay in the family. Sometimes it's really hard to escape the dynamics of the narcissist family cult or system that we've grown up with. These families that have one person in power who gets to dictate who has power, who has attention, who gets validation, and how people are treated, it can be difficult for a person to find their sense of empowerment as an individual and their sovereignty. Narcissist family systems are so difficult to be born into and to survive. They become very dysfunctional. You don't have a sense of your own power, and you don't have the ability to make your own decisions without it costing you something. Narcissist family systems can really disrupt the next generations because anyone born into that family lineage is under the control of whoever is controlling that narcissist family system, the matriarch or the patriarch. In order to stay in a narcissist family system, you have to stay in alignment with what the matriarch or patriarch of that system allows for. You're never allowed to speak your truth or share the secrets that you know. Only the matriarch or patriarch is allowed to use secrets against people, to cause people to turn their backs on one another, to cause people to play games with one another. All the source of validation has to come from the narcissist that's in control of the family system. Narcissists have an inverted sense of power. They have an inability to derive their own power from their self in healthy, functional behaviors. Instead, they like to threaten, intimidate, and feel like they're dominating others to feel their sense of power. Not all narcissists will do this in a violent way. Some of them will operate in a passive-aggressive way, in which they will use leverage tactics to manipulate other people to work against you, or circumstances to work against you, and hurt you and undermine your best interests. Some families have multiple narcissists that form inside of them, especially families that come from trauma patterns. Certain individuals that are raised in families like this will become the fighter. They'll become the dominators. Other people who are raised in this can become vulnerable to being dominated because they don't know how to advocate for themselves and they don't know how to break away from the narcissist family cult or system. Others will become passive, neutral. They'll watch everything happen, but they'll want to stay out of it for their own protection. They like to stay neutral because neutrality gives them an opportunity to stay in good company with everyone. And they are very good at denying what's happening in reality around them. They believe that whatever's happened is temporary and is not their business. Even though staying neutral can betray people, because when you need protection, when you need someone to back you up and to really validate what your truth is, that person won't be there to help validate you. That individual who stays neutral in a narcissist family system actually allows more harm to be created by the matriarch or patriarch who's the narcissist of the family. And then there are other members in the narcissist family system who we'll call the flying monkeys. Those are the individuals that will do the bidding for the narcissist in order to gain validation and benefits from them. So they are the ones that are very similar to the narcissist because they don't have their own ability to drive their own power. They will do whatever it takes to get that pat on the head and that reward from the narcissist. Families who get sick together stay sick together, and a narcissist family system is much like that. When you examine the family tree of a narcissist family system or cult, if the family members who don't have their sense of power intact and aren't red flagging, hey, this matriarch or patriarch isn't doing right by us, then we should go on our own way. They can't look at it honestly and say, I don't want to live like this. This is how we were taught to live, but this is not what I believe is healthy for a good way of living. So they will stay with the narcissist family system. When you live in a narcissist family system, you do not want to stand apart. You want to be seen as similar because similarity will not put you in hot water. But if you stand apart, if you're trying to do better things with your life, if you are not repeating trauma, if you're trying to make more healthy choices, then the narcissist is going to feel very threatened by that. They're going to feel that you're challenging their way, and they don't want anybody else to see that because that might make other people say, hey, you're right. This narcissist that we have in our family didn't do right by us. Maybe it's better for us to change. And then the narcissist fear that they will be left out. So they work in all of their influence and manipulation power to keep people under their control, under their influence. Some have great status and power, so it's easy for them to maintain because they might have wealth, they might have community power. But there are other dysfunctional homes that don't bear good fruit, don't have status, don't have money, don't have wealth. All they have is social credit with one another. They have the family keeping the family's secrets. And even though it's dysfunctional, and even though it's very impoverished, they will keep it going because that's all that they've ever known and that's all they have. And they don't know how to live outside of the narcissist family system. The narcissist preys upon that. The narcissist knows that they have weakened the people around them. They've manipulated them to become exactly what they wanted them to become so that they could never go outside of the boundaries of the narcissist's power. Some narcissists work covertly. Covert narcissists are different. They're a little bit better at hiding the fact that they have their children under their power. But what you'll see is that the children yearn for validation from the parent. And in order to get that validation, they have been programmed to do certain things that will please that covert narcissist. Regardless of what type of narcissist you have in your family, they all operate the same. They seek to be the one with ultimate control over someone's life. They want to be the one that you come to with your problems, with your dreams, with your questions, with everything. They don't want you making your own decisions. They want to be in charge of those choices, and they want to make sure that you look up to them and that they never feel threatened by you creating something outside of their power. When you go through your own developmental journey and you realize who you are and you start healing your own trauma and you start to look at your family system in a different way, you start to understand maybe those things that happened to me, they didn't have to happen. I could have been raised differently. And while you cannot go back and change the past, you can change the future. When you start waking up in your own life and realizing the harm that was done to you through narcissistic family systems, the unfairness, the abuse, maybe it was emotional, psychological, physical, the manipulation, when you really start healing yourself, going within, processing your experiences, looking at them from an objective angle, asking yourself, is this something that I feel was fair to me? Is this something that I want to allow to happen to me? Are there boundaries that I need to set up? When you really start examining your life from an objective view and trying to heal those trauma wounds, it's going to be threatening to the powers that control your life, because they are not going to want you to see them in a different way. They worked very hard at building their kingdom and their power, and they don't want anybody messing with that. And so you might be considered a threat when you start really healing yourself and awakening. But when you're living from inside of a narcissistic family system, it's very hard to do that, because the people around you don't want you to do that. They're uncomfortable by it. Some people will be interested. They'll pay attention from the sidelines, but mostly they're interested in watching the behind the scenes show of what's being said behind your back while you're planning your exit. It's important to have realistic expectations about what is possible. The game that narcissists play with their children is they generally select one child to look up to and to make all the other children feel less than. This can create insecurity in the other children. Let's just say you have a sibling who you grew up with side by side and you were both traumatized, but one was rewarded and looked up to than the other. This will create a competitive role for the one that got diminished. They will want to compete with the one who got looked up to by the narcissist, the one that the narcissist validated so much in order to devalue the other siblings. One or more of them may start competing for a greater sense of power and trying to diminish the child that's being looked up to. And this can cause a lot of damage because they're not the ones creating this false image that they're so perfect. It's the narcissist putting that image on the child only to hurt and damage the relationships between the siblings. But because the other sibling doesn't understand that this is a game the narcissist is playing in order to damage the children's ability to bond and trust, then it breaks apart the bond between siblings. And there becomes this silent competition and envy that can emerge from the child who's been devalued. Now the child who's been overvalued will be hated and set up for humiliation and abuse by the devalued child. When you are the child who's been overvalued, if you look at what the narcissist is doing to that child, they're setting that child up for a lifetime of heartbreak because that child will no longer have siblings intact that want to be connected to them intimately and want to grow their life with them. So you end up having a broken family dynamic because the narcissist is able to play a game with their mind and manipulate each of them so that none of them feels validated by their siblings, but rather look to the narcissist to be validated. You may enter a period where you decide that being a part of this family system is unhealthy for you, and you're not going to be able to have the life that is fair to you, that will allow you to be nurtured and to grow and to have a healthy outcome in your life. So leaving that narcissistic family dynamic becomes imperative because you don't want to play those games and allow the narcissist to damage you for the rest of your life. Damage all the relationships, any other children that you may have coming into the relationship. Because if a person is willing to do this to their own children, they're not going to stop. They would continue damaging the grandchildren, the partners you may have, the children may marry. No one is safe around a narcissist who is willing to devalue people and play games with them and hurt them and break their bonds in such a way. Now, there's something you should know. If you do decide to leave your narcissistic family dynamic, I'm just going to be honest with you. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to give up some things that feel very unfair. When you do leave a situation like this, you leave with nothing. You leave with no attachments to anyone in that system because everyone in that system is still going to be under the manipulative control of that narcissist. And anything you do or say about the family system or that's not in compliance with it, once you leave, will work against you. Those people who are still in company with the narcissist will want the narcissist's approval. They'll do anything it takes to get it. The loss can be catastrophic for those of us who leave a narcissistic family system. You might have to leave your nieces and your nephews behind. You may never get to know them or have any relationships with them because you know that their parent will not be honest about why you've had to leave that system. They are still upholding the lie of the trauma. They are still upholding this secret, this mask. It's extremely painful. So if you've left the family, then you're out forever. And it's not going to be a situation where they are going to be fair to you. You're still the person who is seen as an enemy because you haven't stuck with the dysfunctional system and you're still not able to be trusted for that reason. Now they can devalue all they want. They can own the story. They can make it out like you're crazy. They can make it out like you were the dysfunctional one. And now everybody in that system gets to pretend that there's no dysfunction at all. The person who left was a dysfunctional one. And so it's quite difficult to survive the narcissist family system, but it is definitely important to leave the system, no matter how difficult it is. You will feel an immediate relief when you leave the system because you will no longer have people messing with you, making you hurt, making you feel insecure, whatever the game is that they play with you. You won't have to deal with that anymore. But you will have to deal with the fact that you are living your life now as an independent person. But at the end of the day, you will be living a life that feels true to your values, that you can be honest and develop yourself with, and you can make new friends and create new traditions with that feel more in alignment with the goals of you being healthy. The one thing I can say about leaving the narcissistic family cult is there has to be someone who breaks the generational curse of this way of manipulating and dominating and traumatizing people. There has to be somebody who leaves. There has to be somebody who says, I'm not going to allow myself to live this way. I'm not going to have my children learn these behaviors. And they change those traditions. They change how they live their lives. To me, that person has taken the hero's journey. That's something that is extremely brave to do, to be able to break free and to live sovereign in your own way, in your own truth, in your own value set is very important. You're never alone in the energetic universe. Whatever you believe, whether it's God, whether it's the universal being, whether it's creator, all I know is that there is an energy force of love and there's an intelligence always at play in our lives. Being with your heart and soul and taking this journey and being useful to others, being useful to those around you, helping the animals, helping the earth, helping the people, this can be a new way of living for you. You don't have to stick around in dysfunctional patterns with families that want to dominate you and make you feel less than about yourself. I hope this has helped you somewhat to feel encouraged to look behind the curtain of whatever you might be experiencing with your own family. And if it's not healthy, to take that step to start processing what's right for you. I'm Dawn the Empath. I love you all. Please leave in the comments section if you have any of these experiences that you'd like to share of your narcissistic family system that you've experienced. Be well.